Shalom, everybody. Welcome back to the Baal HaSulam's Matan Torah with commentary by Rebbe Avraham Morechai Gottlieb. I'll be referring to, as always, the Rebbe Shita. We're on page 111, section 20. The header reads, "The Israeli nation must continue to train itself and others until the world adopts the spiritual work of the love of others." Meaning to say, we have to be the big brother. We have an important role, and that's why we can say that our role is to be chosen, as we spoke about in prior classes. But the Creator chose us because He had no other choice. Meaning to say that the other nations of the world did not have the refinement like we did from our forefathers and the like. So it is up to us to be the example. And when we're not the example, the world lets us know. So the Baal HaSulam begins. However, the conclusion of the rectification of the world will come when everyone in the world is included in the idea. The translator adds here literally the secret. So I guess the idea is a practical translation of the word sod. So the secret of the matter of God's service. As it is written, quote, "And God will be king over all the earth. On that day God will be one, and His name one." From Zechariah 14:9. Hu ishmo echad, He and His name will be one. His name are one. The original event, original condition in reality where this was the case was in the Ein Sof, before all of the world succeeded and chained from the original simple light. In the world of the Ein Sof, there was a process of building a complete vessel, being creation, being the complete Kli, the Malchut. Malchut means kingship, because a king needs servants. A king needs people like us to claim his kingship. And so, Malchut, being the vessel that receives the abundance, receives the Shefa from the Creator, is called as such. In the condition of the Ein Sof, the Malchut was completely and utterly one, unified with the Creator, even though she was receiving. So what this pasuk, what this verse in Zechariah is meaning to say is that in future time, we will come back to that condition. In the introduction to the Zohar, the Baal HaSulam says that there's three conditions. Very generally speaking, there's the first condition of the creature being completely unified with the Creator in the condition of Malchut in the Ein Sof. Infinite goodness, infinite abundance. But even so, the Malchut was influenced by the 100% light that she was imbued with, and she wanted to be like the light, meaning she wanted to employ the characteristic of giving and not receiving. And that's what the Tzimtzum was. A lot of the world believes that Tzimtzum was something done by the Creator Himself, meaning He created and restricted Himself by creating an empty space and then filled the space. But according to the Torah of the Baal HaSulam, no, actually, through the free will of the Malchut, of the creature, of the creation, the Tzimtzum was made, meaning to say she decided that she wanted super perfection. It was not out of a place of lack. It was out of place of wanting to be adorned even more for the sake of her beloved, being the Creator. So that's condition one, says the Baal HaSulam in the introduction to the Zohar. Stage two is the Tikkun of creation. That's the 6,000 years that we are, God willing, speedily approaching the end of. And the Tikkun has to do with raising the Shechina, which is another name for this Malchut. We are the Malchut, we are the Shechina. We are the feminine expression of the Creator, because the female aspect of spirituality in principle is a vessel, is that which receives. And we receive everything from the Creator. Our heartbeat, our breathing, every single detail of our lives is from the Creator. But because of our soul is a portion from on high, it's a chip off the old block per se, so then we are expressing the Creator in the world, hopefully, through our involvement in Torah and mitzvot, and our desire to refine ourselves. And thus we are a feminine expression of the Creator, so to speak, because we are the kli, we're the vessel that receives the abundance. And then finally, stage 3 is coming back to the first condition. It's the infinite, eternal union with the Creator. We are the Kala, we're like the bride of the Creator, so to speak. And the 6,000 years is us courting Him and trying to correct ourselves and work on ourselves to finally be married to Him again. As there have been times in history where we've had a relative union with Him, in the times of the Beit HaMikdash, the Holy Temple, for example. But the Rebbe Shita has said on many occasions that more importantly in this generation, right here, right now, it's more important to focus on the personal Beit HaMikdash, meaning each and every human on this planet. We ourselves are a temple. We have an inner temple. The Creator wants to dwell within the temple. But before we can manifest the third and final temple, as we are destined to manifest, we must first and foremost build that within ourselves, meaning build and regulate the qualities of giving, loving, and the like. So again, this is Zechariah. Verse is meaning to say that because God will be king over all the earth, on that day God will be one and His name will be one. Meaning we're going to come back to that perfect condition, but it's going to be through our work. We will earn it as opposed to being given it on a silver plate, with a silver spoon, so to speak. And similarly, the writings quote, "For the earth will be full of the knowledge of God," from Yeshayahu, Isaiah 11:9, and quote, "and all the nations will stream to it," being God's house, from also Yeshayahu, being Isaiah 2:2. But as we've mentioned many times before, the nations of the world mean to say the will to receive within ourselves. The 70 nations of the world, as they're described, are the 70 different aspects and the myriad of details that they employ within us, that we need to correct, that we need to transfer, that we need to convert into Yisrael, into Yashar Kel, straight to God, for the sake of heaven. So when the pasuk, when the verse here says, "and all the nations will stream to God's house," the inner manner is meaning to say that all the aspects of the will to receive for oneself alone will be focused and corrected towards serving the Creator. Because these aspects are within me, and God's house, being the temple, is also me. We are the temple. We have our inner spiritual temple. Our soul is housing the Creator, so to speak. So too, all these wills to receive will stream, meaning direct themselves in order to serve the Creator, as opposed to receiving in order to receive for oneself alone, which instantaneously separates us from the Creator because it's a dissimilarity of form, because He's only giving when we can finally correct this aspect of Malchut, of receiving in order to receive, the most coarse aspect that our generation is connected to, that we have to refine to the highest degree, specifically to the merit of this holy wisdom, particularly the wisdom of truth, the Chochmat Emet, the Kabbalah. So too we'll be able to finally receive in order to bestow goodness, the corrected form of the will to receive, because our chomer, our raw material of all of reality and all of its detail is the will to receive. The Baal HaSulam continues, "However, the role of Israel towards the whole world resembles the role of our holy fathers towards the Israelite nation. The refinement of our fathers enabled us to develop and become purified until we became worthy of receiving the Torah. For, were it not for our fathers, who observed all of the Torah before it was given, we would certainly not be any more praiseworthy than the rest of the nations. Even so, I've heard the Rebbe Shlita say to me personally in conversation that there's really not such a huge difference, even in today's society, between those who seemingly keep the Torah and its mitzvot and the nations of the world. Okay, one is abiding by Torah and mitzvot for a myriad of reasons, particularly without the inner work for oneself, for all types of reasons that are really rooted in one's ego. Because we all want reward in this world and the world to come, particularly, as opposed to just having the reward of being able to serve. That the reward for the mitzvah is not some type of payment, but the reward for the mitzvah is the mitzvah. The mitzvah itself was the reward, and I want to be rewarded with even another mitzvah, to just do good. That's the level of giving to give. That's the level of righteousness that we are aiming for. What sets us apart, of course, from the nations of the world, which are just representing and manifesting the aspects of the will to receive within us, we're really not so different from them, because unless we are constantly exposed and involving ourselves in these matters, then we'll never be able to employ them practically in our lives. The Ramchal says, Rabbi Moshe Chaim Luzzatto Zatzal, one of the greatest Kabbalists of recent times, arguably of all time, said in the introduction to his masterful work in ethics, the Mesilas Yesharim, he says there in the introduction that even in his generation, the masters, the Torah scholars, the righteous people were not involving themselves in simple matters that was a necessity for everyone on any given day, being a cheshbon nefesh, an accounting of the soul, a self-reflection. Where am I holding? How am I doing? Was I giving? Was I loving? Was I receiving? Where was I holding? What's going on? That the matter is so simple and so obvious that it's kind of brushed away, as if it's not to be a part of our Seder, not to be part of the order of our lives and our day. So too, in truth, as we continue to learn this, I'm sure we're all realizing that the notion of being giving and loving and all these things is so simple. But unless we're exposed to the ideas constantly, we won't be able to employ them practically, because only when we do it can we realize how much we're not doing it. Meaning to say, only when we're involved in the mitzvah with the intention of giving, and we reflect either on the spot or after the fact of how much we actually did it in order to receive some type of payment or some type of reward, as opposed to just doing it for the sake of doing it for the Creator, seeing this gap, feeling that dissonance, that builds vessels, that builds the kelim that allows us to raise a true prayer, to raise our lack and fill that lack with abundance and goodness of refinement and being closer to the Creator. So the Rebbe Shlita says on this comment regarding, if it were not for our fathers who observed all of the Torah before it was given, we would certainly not be any more praiseworthy than the rest of the nations. The Rebbe Shlita says, so we see that God has no sentiments at all for the people of Israel. Rather, God seeks within the world a species like his own. Since God is merciful and gracious, he seeks such a nature among his creatures. Because this quality has been developing within the Israelite nation, they had been brought closer to God. Simple science, simple mathematics, similarity of form. The closer we are in characteristic to the Creator, the closer we are to him. Because this quality was already developing within us, and is hopefully, slowly but surely still developing, then we draw closer and closer. All this must be applied to each individual. That is, as long as the nations of the world within us are what controls our intentions, we cannot receive divine inspiration, and there can be no contact between us and God. Only according to the measure of our progress toward loving the other does the Creator form a connection with us. Although there's also the divine aspect referred to as, I am God who dwells with them in their defilement. This divine presence is found only within someone who has the potential to arrive at loving the other. For then God shows the person how his or her self-love is defilement, and in this way, he or she slowly progresses towards arriving at loving the other. We need to recognize our lack. We need to recognize the bitter truth of how receiving and egotistical we are. Without that recognition, we can't work on it. I can't work on something I don't know and don't see. And even then, we work on it as hard as we can, only to come to the breaking point of realizing we can't do it. We literally cannot do it alone. And thus, we realize and say, with tears in our eyes and a broken heart, Creator, please save me. Please release me from the prison of the will to receive so I can be free, so I can have true freedom and truly give to the other without any intention for myself. To cry like Rachel Imenu, Rachel, our mother, who said, I am dead without sons. That's the level we need to reach. Because children, in spiritual terms, is our actions. The parents are the thoughts, and thoughts beget actions. So to have sons, because male is the aspect of giving, to say she needs a son or she wants a son, meaning acts of giving. The product of one's thoughts is that of being in line with the Creator. So for us to be like Rachel Imenu and say, I am dead without sons, meaning to say, I am dead without acts of giving, true giving, because I am only connected to you, the life of all lives, if I'm in similarity of form with you, if I'm giving. So I'm already dead if I'm not doing so. And we need to feel that bitterness, slowly but surely, more and more. But really, it's a bitter sweetness. The Rebbe Zitzal says, every time that we notice such a thing, even if we're in the lowest state, so to speak, and we see the most disgusting thing in truth about ourselves, we should be happy. We should be dancing in such a condition. Because, Baruch Hashem, thank God that we've been brought to such a condition of the truth, of recognizing with clarity what is going on. Because without that, we can't progress. It's a necessity, as hard as it is. So there's a story of the Baal HaSulam, where a student of his also was revealing to his Rebbe, the Baal HaSulam at the time, that he had noticed all these aspects of themselves. He noticed his ego and his coarseness and the like, and he was sad, he was down about it. And the Baal HaSulam's like, why are you sad? It's an amazing thing. He was so happy for him. And he said something along the lines, if I'm paraphrasing here, that just noticing it, just having the recognition of the evil is like turning bone to dust. For modern terms, I like to describe it as like laser beams out of the eyes, just disintegrating whatever it is that one notices in oneself. Truth is, it's much more difficult than that. It's not so simple. But just to notice it itself is already a tikkun. It's already a correction, which is a huge deal. So everything we notice in ourselves that needs work should ideally, and we should work on it if we don't feel it, bring us immense joy. The Baal HaSulam continues in the same way it is incumbent upon the Israeli nation via its occupation with Torah and mitzvot. By the way, I'm back on page 111 towards the bottom. To train itself in all the people of the world until they develop to the stage that they take upon themselves the sublime work of the love of others, which is the ladder to the purpose of creation. That purpose being attachment to God, Dveikut, as has been explained. He continues, in this way, each and every commandment that each individual from Israel performs with the intention to bring contentment to our Maker, and not for any payment of reward or self-love, promotes to some degree the development of all the people in the world. This is not done at once, but by slow, gradual development until these acts increase to such a degree that they can shift all the people in the world toward the desired purity. And this is what our sages call tipping the scale to the side of merit. The Rebbe Shita clarifies here. Again, it should be noted that the Hebrew word zechut, translated here as merit, can also mean spiritual refinement. So the tipping of the scale refers to attaining a state where spiritual refinement is dominant. As we've mentioned many times, zchut, as brought down in the Peticha, the Chochmat Kabbalah and Ot Aleph, as written down by the Baal HaSulam, that zechut, merit, is from the lashon, it's from the language of hizdachut, refinement. Because the greatest merit we can ask for is to be spiritually refined. Zechut, I checked, the gematria, interestingly, is 433, which is Ani Kel Shakai. Pronouncing those two last words, those are both holy names of the Creator, so I'm pronouncing them differently, but the Creator revealed Himself to the likes of Moshe Rabbeinu, Avraham Avinu, with this name. Meaning to say they were so refined, they reached such a level of zechut, that Hashem revealed Himself in this form, through this name, through this aspect, to them. And another amazing tzaddik who had Hashem reveal Himself through the name of Kel Shakai was the Baal HaSulam. There's a wonderful, wonderful, awe-inspiring letter, a diary entry by the Baal HaSulam during the time of World War I, where he was crying all night. And towards the dawn, he fell asleep and he entered into a prophetic vision. And there's much to be said on this. It's worth at least one class, several classes in itself, but it's very deep and very powerful. And in short, the Creator has bestowed the Baal HaSulam with the mantle of the zchut, the refinement, the ability to bring the redemption through his Torah. Because the Torah of the Baal HaSulam is unlike anything in the world. The most clear and concise and detailed description of the Chochmat HaEmet that we so desperately need in this generation to bring the redemption, as clarified by all the Kabbalists throughout history. If one wants to read it in Hebrew, it's in the biography of the Baal HaSulam written by the Rebbe Shlita called HaSulam, and the English version is Master the Ladder, as translated by Yehudah Cohen. It is also in there. Lovely, lovely work. I think if one Googles the Baal HaSulam's prophecy, they should also be able to find it somewhere on the internet. Also, tipping the scale. As we said, so the tipping the scale refers to attaining a state where spiritual refinement is dominant. Because we want to tip ourselves to the side of merit, as we say. Meaning we want to tip ourselves to the side of refinement. Because as we refine ourselves with Torah and mitzvot, a mitzvah begets a mitzvah. And an avera, sin, begets a sin. Avera, from the language of passing over, or to be veered, meaning I'm being veered from being Yashar Kel. I'm being veered from being in line with the will of the Creator. I don't know if it's a direct translation of the word scale, mishkal, also means to weigh, to balance, to figure out. But I think practically it also is like a scale. And the gematria of mishkal, of scale or weighing, is 470, which is the gematria of Tanakh, which is the acronym for Torah, Nevi'im, Ketuvim, the 24 books of the Canon of Judaism, the Holy Torah. And of course, all of our Torah being the oral Torah, both the Talmud and the Zohar HaKadosh and the like, all stem from this foundation of the 24 books. It says in the commentary to the Zohar and the Sulam, in the Hakdamas of the Zohar, that the books of Moshe, the Chumash, the Torah, is from the aspect of Chesed, Gevurah, and Tiferes. The books of the Nevi'im, the prophets, are from Netzach, Hod, and I would presumably think you could put Yesod into that mix. And then the Ketuvim are corresponding to Malchut. So Tanakh include the correction and all the faculties to work on the bottom 7 sefirot, which is our midos, our characteristics that we're working on in this lifetime. The 7 sefirot also being the top 6 of the 7, being Zer Anpin, which is the small face, meaning the small revelation of the Creator practically in our lives day to day. And the bottom sefirot of Malchut, which is our innermost chomer, our raw material of receiving, being the Shechina. So those 7 sefirot together being HaKadosh Baruch Hu and the Shechina, Kudsha Brichu V'Shechintei. So to tip the scale towards the side of merit, as we merit to do the mitzvot and merit to do them properly, or slowly but surely refining ourselves to at least attempt and desire to do them properly, we're constantly refining these aspects within ourselves and making unifications between the Creator and the Shechina, being us, all of Klal Yisrael and humanity. And importantly, I'd like to note that in contrast to Tanakh being the bottom 7 sefirot, as I explained, it also says there in the same comment, the same section from the Baal HaSulam, that the books of Kabbalah, the Razim, the secrets of the Torah, are from the upper 3 sefirot, from the highest aspects. So by definition, as the Rebbe Shita said, he undiplomatically believes and says that we cannot refine ourselves without the Chokhmat Emet in this generation. If we don't have such learning and are exposed to these things, we're doomed, quite literally. It says in the Gemara, if we don't do tshuva, if we don't refine ourselves and realign ourselves with the will of the Creator, then the Creator will employ a king more wicked than Haman to force us to tshuva. So thankfully, either way, we're getting to the end point. The intention I had when saying we're doomed is meaning to say that we're going to receive much more suffering by nature's hand, as opposed to bringing the suffering upon ourselves by reflecting and seeing the truth. It says that one who judges themselves is saving themselves from judgment above, so to speak. Meaning we're going to get a better grade in the books. Not to say that that should be our main intention, but we have to work with something at our level. So because the Kabbalah is the upper 3 sefirot, and because we're in the last generation, I mean, out of 6,000 years, we're pretty close. This is like Erev Shabbat. So to finish the system, to finish the download, so to speak, we need particular lights. We need particular information to be drawn into the system to refine and finish the download. And that happens to be from the Kabbalah. So it's not a matter of theory. It's not something so mystical and esoteric. It's science. It's the mathematics of the way the Creator created creation. That in this last generation, we need, as all the Kabbalists have clarified, we need this wisdom to be revealed more and more, so we can involve ourselves in it. As the Rishita says, the study of love, the study of the soul. So may we merit to connect to it and to tip the scale, to refine all aspects of ourselves, and slowly but surely come closer to each other, as difficult as it can be. Let's check quickly if there's any comments in the live stream or any questions. Not that I see. But thank you guys so much for watching and tuning in. And please share this with your loved ones. It's a great merit to share such wisdom with others. Till next time, all the best.